and a leading voice on food system transfer. You have extensive experience in nutrition policy and multi-stakeholder approach that foster healthy diets in sustainable food systems. Dr. Jovic also serves as a commissioner on the Eat Lancet 2.0 initiative and plays an active role in the policy communities of action, helping to translate science into action and food system transformation globally. Now, I don't know whether Dr. Jovic has arrived. Please come here and please take this place. Thank you so much. Oh, Thank you.
Good afternoon, all, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to say something. I think the whole idea behind food systems transformation is in recognition of the fact that we need to consume more healthy diets from sustainable food systems, and that we need to do so within planetary boundaries. And this was really at the core of the Eat Lancet process to promote such diets. Given the limited amount of time in this session, I would like to start simply by introducing what the Eat Lancet report is trying to do. First of all, from available evidence, we know 2 billion people are not able to meet their micronutrient needs. That's under nutrition. We also have 155 million children that are stunted, too short for their height, for their age, implying their brain is also compromised. At the same time, we also have 2 billion people that are overweight or obese. These are different spectrums. And so we want to address different forms of malnutrition, all forms of malnutrition. To do so, we need healthy diets. And so what we anticipate from Eat Lancet 2.0 is to look at healthy diets. The current evidence has been reviewed in order to update the planetary healthy diets of 2019. But to do so, also looking at the environment, looking at different contexts to become more context specific in the type of advice that is provided. So looking at the local level and not just at the global level. Then we are looking at food systems transformation. And here we are looking for solutions, identifying solutions that can be used to address positive food systems transformation, to address barriers, and to also inform actions, such as what we are here to try and do in this summit. Quite new in Eat Lancet 2.0 is a justice and fair food systems component. And this component identifies social foundations for food systems transformation and also look at proposing justice boundaries to make sure that as we consider food systems transformation towards healthier diets, we went behind. Then we have food systems boundaries. And here, the idea is identifying the impact of the share of sustainable food systems within boundaries, within the planetary boundaries. And so that implies doing some really interesting modeling as well. So Eat Lancet 5.2.0 has also looked at incorporating quite extensive modeling. It has brought together modeling groups, the 10 top modeling groups on this planet, to look at different scenarios of food systems transformation that we should be looking at under different settings. Together, we provide evidence to inform entry points for food systems transformation and enabling environment for business and entrepreneurship and the private sector. What we expect is that the guidance that comes from Eat-Lancet 2.0 should inform the business sector's entry points into food systems transformation. We cannot deliver healthy diets without the business sector doing their part. They need to be part of delivering on the vision of sustainable healthy diets for all out behind. But they must also find entry points to ensure that the transformation we undergo is such that we can stay within planetary boundaries. If the business thinking about healthy diets, it means we can avoid some of the trade-offs that we have that now create a situation where 2 billion suffer from undernutrition. At the same time, 2 billion are suffering from overweight and obese. So in this discussion today, I hope that those of you that are coming from the private sector will think about potential entry points where you can make a difference to be able to get us to better, sustainable, healthy diets for all, and keeping an eye on the vision of maintaining planetary boundaries, because if we do not do so, we will not have a planet tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Jovic, because you've really framed what health diets in sustainable food system need to look like, or at least how the Eat-Lancet 2.0 will explain it, with a great fact that now there will be much more consideration to regional specificities and also the just transition. Now we're going to turn to our esteemed panelists to really look at how we get there. You know, you gave us a challenge. You said, you know, we're giving you a direction, and the private sector needs to do its part to deliver it. So we're going to hear from some of our panelists of how they've been working, sometimes from the private sector, and talk about them and, you know, the role of policymakers in doing that. And I'll also just remind you that the BBCSD, together with FAO and the UN Global Compact and GAIN and they published today a compendium with 15 case studies, examples at scale of how that transformation can happen on the ground. And I would really encourage you to have a look at that. It's posted on the main website of the Hub. So first of all, we will have in our panel today, let me just find back my notes. We're going to have, first of all, Sebastian Buck, who is Chargé d'Affaires, Royal Danish Embassy in Ethiopia. Thereafter, we will have Ms. Eya Yetavuo, who is Chief Corporate Affairs Officer at Tetra Pak. And we will also hear from Mrs. Kaori Ono, who is Executive Officer, General Manager, Sustainability at Genome. And what I really hope, despite, we have quite some time, is if you have a few questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you after that panel discussion. So we'll try to keep an eye on the time to make sure it can be a bit interactive, which has been missing a little bit so far in this instance. So with no further ado, I am going to turn to the panelists. So first of all, we're going to look at examples of successful partnerships between governments and private sector. And we want to look at what are the lessons that we're learning from those successes. Thereafter, we'll dig a bit further. So Mr. Buck, we know of two really exciting examples of where Denmark is leading the way in a reform towards healthy and sustainable diets. There is the Danish Whole Grain Alliance that you will find in the compendium, and also the Danish Protein Diversification Strategy, amongst others. So could you briefly highlight how these were designed to catalyze investment and what made it effective from a policy perspective? Do you want to come here or stay there? It's as you prefer. Okay.
Thank you so much, distinguished guests and excellencies, and thank you for the introduction. I will take one step back and start with telling a bit about how we do food system transformation in Denmark, because I think as the policymaker in the panel, the first acknowledgement which is important is to realize that transformation and food system transformation to a more sustainable and green future is not an easy task. It's not a task that government can do alone. On the contrary, balancing different interests and finding ways to reduce emissions, restore biodiversity while protecting the conditions for our great farmers and businesses is an immense challenge. So from a government point of view, I think my most important point today is that lasting transformations in food systems are not possible without trust and collaboration and a shared ownership between all stakeholders involved. So first of all, political ambition alone is not enough. It's necessary to work across different sectors, different interests, and across political divides, both in the phase of developing the policy, but also in the implementation phase. So I want to tell you a brief story about Denmark's new comprehensive plan for green transition in our agricultural and food and that is called Agreement on a Green Denmark. So it's a very ambitious plan, binding targets to reduce emissions in the agriculture and food sector. But maybe more importantly for this discussion, this plan, which is the biggest and transformative plan in Denmark so far, was developed through a multi-stakeholder negotiation. So the process was to bring together Danish government actors, agricultural institutions, environmental NGOs, trade unions, and business leaders. So let me emphasize what we literally did. All these different actors with different interests and different point of view, we put them around the same table to negotiate, and we kept them around the same table until they agreed on how to form system and agriculture in Denmark. But it was not just the policy. They were also asked to co-create the strategy for future implementation of this policy. And the result they delivered was passed in the Danish parliament with broad political backing from many parties. And my point is here that that level of consensus is such a powerful enabler for investment and for business development. So it creates of course, a predictability for business and investors, and it reduces political risk. It gives the farmers and the business the confidence that rules won't change tomorrow. So the inclusive approach did not stop with the policy development. In the implementation phase, 23 different local councils were established with a representation by all relevant stakeholders. So even after the policy was passed, during the implementation phase, we kept everyone around the table on board to ensure the implementation. And this model, so a strong political and national vision and a bottom-up formulation and implementation of policy, is the Danish formula for making green transformation stick. What Denmark has learned, I think, from this process and from these policy mechanisms is that they work best when they are open, inclusive, and collaborative. So when farmers and businesses become co-authors of transforming food systems, they also become a part of the change. And as you mentioned, two other key examples that I will be happy to come back to are as well the Danish Whole Grain Alliance and the Danish strategy on diversification of protein. So I think my message to all of you today, to the government representatives, when you build your food system transitions, do not only rely on good policy and good funding, but also rely on trust and participation from all your and to all the businesses present here, the business representatives, take part in the political process, because your input and your knowledge is valuable and absolutely decisive for policy to succeed. So I will stop here, and I will be happy to answer follow-up questions also on the whole grain partnership and of course the protein strategy. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Thank you. This was very inspiring. Really keep your words around and being inclusive. I assume also transparent in the way you are including people and shaping it together and then implementing together. So now we're going to turn first of all to the representative of Tetra Pak to hear in your work with value chain partners. Have you seen examples of government interventions that helped unlock corporate investments towards healthy diets and sustainable food systems?
Oh, that's better. Wrong buttons, too many options. Excellent. So thank you very much for the invitation to be here on this panel, and greetings to all the honorable people present, speakers and the audience. For those of you who may not know Tetra Pak so well, I'd just like to say a few words about Tetra Pak, because very often we are known for our packages, which of course you will also see here in Ethiopia, but everywhere in the world. And those are those carton packages, which where you pack normally perishable foods or drinks. But we're something beyond that, so we are one of the world's largest packaging and food processing technology companies, and a bit invisible in the food systems because we're in the middle part of the food system. So when it comes to farm to fork, we are fairly dominant in many areas in terms of the processing technologies, for instance. So we were founded 70 years ago by a Swedish entrepreneur in the southern part of Sweden, so not so far from Denmark, actually, very close now that there's a bridge between the countries. And what we've been doing since then, so in the past 70 years, we've been innovating in different areas of the middle part of the food systems. So while we started in perishable foods, dairy being the biggest category, we've also moved towards from kind of, if we say, established foods to new foods. And I would like to share an example from this area. And maybe also just before I go to this example, just to give a bit of a taste of the scale of our company, is that so in terms of these food processing units, there are about 115,000 different processing units out there which are using our technology. So in many countries, I see colleagues from Italy, for instance, most of the world's mozzarella is done with our machinery. If there are Dutch colleagues, they would know that Gouda cheese is mostly done with our machinery. And our ice cream center is in Denmark, where a lot of the technologies for world's ice cream come from. So that puts us in a place where we have a lot of responsibilities. And we also basically a couple of years back, 2021, when the first UN Food System Summit took place, we decided to really set out a very strong sustainability agenda around food systems transformation. So we have 4 pathways for transformation, where we believe that the middle part of the value chain has a particular role to play. And one of is and looking into solutions, how we can diversify proteins to also provide alternative proteins in countries where, for instance, animal proteins are not available. So this could be fungi, it could be algae, it could be insects, or innovations that do not exist even today. And what we've been doing in Sweden, which is our hub for development, we've actually received funding from the Swedish government, and we've developed together with Lund University an R&D and innovation hub in this area, and Aarhus University is also involved. So I need to give credit for the Danes in this area as well, as the policy environment is very, very progressive in this area. And this it's called the Biotech Heights, and it's based in Lund. And what we've been doing is So we received funding from the Vinnova, which is a Swedish government entity, that the challenge is not always the innovation, but it's the scaling up. I'm also really happy to say that, encouraged by this investment by the Swedish government and their new food strategy, which also includes investment into biotechnology of foods. Likewise, the Danish colleague here was also mentioning that we've also now established as Tetra Pak product foods in Sweden. So it was launched a month ago, and this will help all those startups that currently cannot scale and accelerate their investments into actual production scale. So we will be working with these companies to actually come up with solutions that are scalable and can address the challenges that we have in the world. So that may be an example in this area. I think this is really a call for collaboration also, because while a lot of these developments are now happening in the global north, I think the global south is really where we should more look into opportunities. And there are some academic collaborations in this area already. But so that I think presents a good example where funding has been sourced and supporting this. And also I must say that the Swedish government trade and aid policy also supports now MBAs that we will be looking at opportunities to bring some of these solutions to markets outside of Europe.
Thank you so much, Aya. So I hear here clearly that there has to be a fertile ground from policies that actually encourage a certain direction, and thereafter, if it's topped up with collaboration to actually invest together on innovation and then implementation, that's a kind of a sweet deal. So I guess that would be something we can talk about a bit later. Maybe on that type of examples, and we'll hear from a different region here. We have Ajinomoto, who can share also a concrete example of how public policy, nationally or regionally, supported your investments towards healthier diets from sustainable food systems. The floor is yours, Karen.
Do you hear me? Okay, thank you. So thank you very much, Emily, for the kind introduction. And it is a great honor to be here to speak to you, honorable guest. I am Kaori Ono, I'm leading sustainability at Ajinomoto, which is one of the largest food and biotech company headquartered in Japan. So we, Ajinomoto, has been researching the science of amino acids, the essential components for all the living things. I was the nutrition researcher for over 20 years in this company, and that experience helped me to see how science and innovation can improve food systems. So let me explain a little bit more about our company. Ajinomoto was established over 100 years ago by two people. One of them scientists who studied chemistry in Germany, and at the time status in Japan was not great. So he found the great taste of the diet there was the source or maybe the secret of the nutrition status there. So he decided to search for and the source of that taste, umami, and discovered amino acid in kombu kelp soup, and which was commercialized in 1909. So now we are operating over 130 countries and have factories over 110 countries. And our business was started from the food, but now we have a wide variety of business based on the amino acid science, like pharmaceuticals, supplements, and for the feed and fertilizers. And I would like to introduce the Japan government strategy regarding the food system transformation. In Japan, the government created the the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fishery launched the Midori strategy for sustainable food. This Midori means green in Japanese. This strategy supports healthy, low-emission diets that are good for both people and the planet. It matches well with our focus on sustainable livestock and agriculture. Our product, Archipro L, is a feed-use amino acid that improve protein to reduce chemical fertilizer use, supports our work with the biostimulants, where we aim to improve nutrient efficiency and soil health using more natural method. It is very encouraging to see our efforts recognized and supported in the government's long-term ambitions. So I'll give you another example about the public-private partnership in this field. In Japan, the government created the Joint Credit Mechanism, JCM. It is a bilateral carbon market system that helps promote low carbon technologies and infrastructure in emerging countries. Based on Japan's own carbon offset program called the J-Credit scheme and expand it through international cooperation. This system encourages Japanese companies to invest in green technologies while also supporting partner countries to reach their climate goals. But to grow efforts like this, we need stronger partnership globally with government, international organizations, and finance partners. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kaori. Oof, this is quite strong. Thank you so much. So here quite some similarities we heard from Sweden on one side, from Denmark on the other, and now in Japan as well, in terms of both the government leading the way in establishing a direction and aligning some of the policy mechanisms, but also working together to unlock some of the innovation and potentially also contributing to setting up the infrastructure, the research with the universities, and really allowing you to thereafter really tap into some investments. You talked here, Kaori, as well about stepping into the carbon market facility. So that's something really interesting. Before we take a second question, I'm so sorry you had to go back over there, Dr. Jovic. Can you unmute yourself? We'd love to hear from you, from what you've heard, and also your own policy experience. What design features for coherence between policy and business action?
I think a good starting point to connect business, the legal environment, and dietary and nutrition outcomes is actually food-based dietary guidelines. The food-based dietary guidelines we often misuse, in that we tend to think about them as it's for the consumer, to help the consumer make decisions on what to consume. But food-based dietary guidelines should also be for the agriculture sector, to inform the agriculture sector what kind of foods are needed in the particular setting. Also includes industry in terms of knowing what kind of food products to produce, so that it helps people adhere to those guidelines. And so, giving an example here in Ethiopia, the food-based dietary guideline that was launched in 2022 has got two objectives. One is to promote healthy consumption patterns across 6 food groups. The other one is recognizing that our food systems are actually not delivering that diverse food basket that is required. The second objective specifically targets food systems actors to use the food-based dietary guidelines as an entry point to inform what kind of interventions they can engage in.
So that's where you come in, where the food-based dietary guidelines are intended to inform everybody, not just the consumers. Because the consumers, they will not be able to make the choices that you expect them to do if everybody else is doing their own things. Now, let me bring a second example that specifically gives that particular example. The food-based dietary guidelines in South Africa for a long time advised people to use salt discretion. And when they looked at consumption surveys, within the Caucasian population in South Africa, most of the salt was discretionary, so they could adhere and could respond to the food-based dietary guidelines. In the Black poor population, most of the salt they consume came already in food. The biggest culprit being bread, breakfast cereal, canned foods, and the like. And so we could sing our songs around using salt discretionary, but they could not adhere to that guideline because they actually didn't have a choice. The food was coming already loaded in salt. So the food industry had to come on board, government had to come on board to bring a salt legislation to limit the amount of salt that could be put in processed foods. Then people can actually be able to adhere to those guidelines. So it's very important to make sure that the guidelines that are being put in place in different places are not only looked at as informing consumers on choices to make, they should also inform industry on what they should be producing. And then beyond that, then on the inclusion bit, you have different locations. So people in pastoralist settings, their dietary recommendations. People elsewhere, so different local settings need to be able to respond to healthy consumption patterns because everybody is using the guidelines as an entry point to inform the transformation that ought to be taking place to make it possible for people to make the right choices. Thank you.
Thanks so much. You were so clear in the examples that you provided. I think what I heard from the Danish presentation earlier was, to include all the way from farmers to the food value chain players in the policymaking discussions. And what I hear from you here is also the relationship with consumers. Often it's a chicken and an egg, because if you turn to consumer groups, and as you stated, they can't be empowered or they don't have the means to actually purchase what's more healthy or more sustainable. And if you turn to the food communities of it, often they will say, yeah, but when I do it, the consumers don't buy it. So I guess we need to get out of that and to see, as you say, provide a North Star for everyone, and then see how you can really encourage with the right policymaking and enabling environments, which is really what we're discussing today, these changes that are needed. I'd like to see, because we have two options here. We have 10 minutes left, maybe your lunch. We have 10 minutes left, so we can take another series of questions from the panel that I have here, or we could turn to the audience. So I'd like to know, just can you lift up your hands if any of you has some questions or comments you'd like to make? Because if there is none, obviously we'll keep on with our agenda. But if there are some burning questions and comments, I think it would be really nice to have a discussion. So does anyone wish to, and we'll take your question in just a few minutes, but does anyone wish to intervene? Or are you happy to just continue to listen from the panelists? We have one, or do we have more questions? There, okay, so we'll come to you in a second. Thank you, looking forward to it. Before that then, what I would love to hear from the panelists is, what is the one single recommendation that you would give governments or private sector partners, respectively, to accelerate in healthy diets in sustainable food systems? So I'll get to each of you one by one. What is the one single recommendation you give to governments and private sector to accelerate investments towards healthy and sustainable diets? Can we take you in the order of how you spoke first? So we'll first turn to you, Mr. Buch.
Thank you so much. And I really echo what has been said here with the guidelines. I think for me it's a lot about the method and the form on how to get everyone on board. So I mentioned government lingo for plant-based food, promoting plant-based food, and Denmark is a country with 28 million pigs and more than 4,000 farms producing pigs. And how can a country like that suddenly be promoting plant-based food? Isn't that against its own interest? Well, actually not, because if we do it in the right way, if we as government go out to the farmers and the businesses, and if we ask them and discuss with them what potential can we together develop in this new sector, which is gaining ground many places in the world. So I think my best advice to government will be, if you have a problem, if you want to promote something, being a healthy diet or refrain from the temptation of making a law or a guideline just like that. Go out to the business sector, go out to the farmers, discuss business opportunities, and develop slowly together what we in promoting this. And if we do this, we have amazing buy-in from many actors, and also delivering really great results, both for health and for export. So that's my single biggest advice. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And I encourage everyone to come talk to you after the session if they want to discuss a bit more how you did that. Very inspiring. Then we'll turn to the representative of Tetra Pak as well for one single recommendation to government or private sector.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there is one single solution, but what I would like to call for, being here representing Tetra Pak, is that while we all are the backbone of the food systems, we should also remember that so are the SMEs who actually manufacture food and who distribute, who pack foods, and the middle part of the value chain. So when you think of whether it is climate funding, there's a huge CO2 exposure in the middle of the opportunities to embrace it in the middle part of the value chain. There's food waste and loss opportunities in manufacturing and all that. So let's be holistic in terms of policy making and financing. I think this is the one thing, and then the other thing is really holistic also in terms of looking at climate, looking at nutrition, looking at nature, looking at social issues, all of these together. I know it's a mission very challenging, but we often see that the discussions between different ministries are not as advanced always in the governments as they.
The Food System Summit is the first attempt, and I think it's worked pretty well to bring ministers and policy representatives from different angles. We need to continue that, health and the environment and agriculture. But you're right, it's also for companies in here where often still the nutrition people are not talking so closely with the sustainability people. So how do you also innovate and propose new products and scale them up and get the financing that also deliver against the two? So then we'll take a last recommendation from the representative from Ajinomoto.
Thank you. As Iya mentioned, we need more focus on the agricultural system, and currently only 4% of the global climate finance goes for the agricultural transformation. That is something we should mention here, I think. And we need to support the small farmers in order to transform the food systems to give the equitable access to the nutritious and sustainable food for all. And in order to do so, we have been, for example, as a company, we have been working with small farmers to improve the productivity and also to reduce their environmental impact. And these types of the efforts should be scaled up in collaboration with the government and the international organizations. And we are ready.
A few investors, a few international financing institutions in the room, and also here today at the summit. We really need to also bring them and find ways to unlock the financing that is needed. And then definitely the idea of also not forgetting to put farmers at the center in how we're developing plans. So would love to turn to the gentleman over there who wanted to ask a question, and then we'll move to closing remarks.
Thank you. Let me also thank your panelists. I heard from Dr. Kovic about food-based dietary guidelines. One of the biggest challenges we have in the value chain is the waste and loss that has been referred to. And that can only be solved by processing. And then there is this talk about processed food, the harm of processed food and all of that, canned food and all of that. What would be the right balance to strike between the need to stem waste and loss in the food system and this issue of the lines when it comes to processed food? Thank you.
Thank you. This is a wonderful opening to, in fact, one of the discussions that I know is pretty hot amongst the Eat Lancet commissioners at the moment. And that's something that we're also debating a lot with our members as well. You know, how do we navigate the question of the level of processing with different directions out there at the moment, and not yet WHO guidance, but I know it's going to come. And indeed, all of the implications on food affordability, food loss and waste, etc. So I guess maybe I'll turn to you indeed, Dr. Jovic, for that one. I'm happy to pass it on to you. And then also thank you all very much for your great contributions.
Processing is important in terms of trying to minimize waste, but you can also derive waste from the processing depending on what you are doing in that processing perspective. I think about consuming minimally processed foods, that has to do with the kind of processing that actually then leads to products that are less healthy. So the balance to be struck is within you process in such a way that the food still remains a healthy food. I will give a specific example. I gave earlier on example of how most of the salt for some community settings in South Africa was coming from processed foods. By reducing the amount of salt, the same product could still be sold, but now much. So I think the balance is in the processing industry, looking at the processing methods that they are using, the preservation methods, more healthy alternatives of doing things. But some form of processing is required. For example, you would need to reduce the moisture levels to make sure that the food does not get spoiled, such as grains will get moldy if they have too much water in them. That too is processing. Those that are processing to fortify staples, that too is processing. So processing, the word itself does not mean something is wrong. It's in what is actually done. So what you see often now being termed as ultra-processed foods is what we know is actually not healthy. Sometimes it's also in all the different additives that are added that may not support good health. Thank you.
Thanks. I encourage you to have many more discussions around this topic. I think it's a crucial one as well. And thank you so much, Dr. Jovic, and thank you to our esteemed panelists as well for this fantastic exchange. Thank you all for being so focused and interested in the discussion. And I just want to say what I heard here was really being systemic. That's the purpose of the Food System Summit, in bringing environmental, social, nutrition, and health outcomes together, understanding how we can move and deliver against all of them, despite some of the trade-offs, but also thinking about having one North Star that is giving us, we have a North Star that is provided by the FAO roadmap. We have another from the EatLandSat 1.0 and the 2.0 that will be given to us very soon as well. So there's no question, we can focus on where there is potential solutions today, and there's a lot that we can do. And a call for collaboration that is open, full of trust, and transparent as well, I would say would be quite a good outcome of here. So thanks a lot and have a good continuation of your day.